Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Payments Association's Insight series, where for the next 5 or 10 minutes, we'll be focusing on Project Cross Border. My name is Vikesh Patel, and I have the privilege of being the project mentor for Project Cross Border, as well as an advisory board member for the Payments Association. And I'm delighted to be joined by Kevin, who is the project lead for the project. Kevin, thank you very much for joining me. Could I ask you maybe to start by introducing yourself and maybe the Project Cross Border and what it's trying to achieve?
Yes, certainly. My name's Kevin McAdam. I'm sort of the project lead for Cross Border. Our focus has very much been around looking at how we can influence the evolution of cross border, and we've been heavily working on the FSB, the Financial Stability Board projects, and we have been through that we identified some core objectives, both from a project perspective and also from a community perspective. And that led us to doing a number of activities over the last year.
Thank you. And maybe just to start with, payments is never a dull area to work in, and the pace of change, the focus over the last few months has been consistent with the last few years, in fact. And actually, in that context of such a busy time, I know that you have been instrumental with others in hosting the Global Payments Forum recently. So really interested to get your perspective on why that was important for the project to host, and why building those relationships with EPA Asia and the broader international community is so important.
Well, I think, first of all, Vikesh, the great thing about it was it gave the Payment Association the chance to share our knowledge and input, really, to a global audience. We've done quite a bit of work over the last year, and this particular activity enabled us to share our research findings that we've recently done with the Payment Association members. We combined that with some, sort of understanding about what we did through the webinar. So it was a real good chance for us to share a global audience. It was also a good chance to share the research that we'd done. And one of the highlights from the research was our need for collaboration. So with associations and operations across the world. So this is one of the ways that we were able to do that, with working very closely with the EPA Asia and the IIF.
Brilliant. Maybe turning to the broader context of cross-border and kind of your perspective and the group's perspective, which I know from experience is a very dynamic, very engaged group of individuals who really make a huge impact in terms of the work and the impact that Payments Association have. What else do you feel is going on in the world of cross-border at the moment that maybe the listeners and those watching would find interesting?
Well, I think the first thing is that what's coming up in next month is the Financial Stability Board are actually going to announce their rule book. Now, that is probably come up on every session that I've ever had on cross-border in terms of the need for harmonisation around regulation. So one of the things that we're doing so myself and a member of the project team, we're going to do a thought leadership piece that's going to talk a little bit about some of the activities we've recently done in the group, but also align that with what the rule book is going to actually share. So that's probably quite key. And then the other part really is we are at the moment working through an engagement with lots of different organisations. So we've been talking with the FCA, we've been talking with MAS in Singapore, we've also been engaging with NGOs and other payment associations, really to try to get an influence about what's happening, so that we can build on some of those things that are going to come out from the FSB. I think the FSB has started to make some progress with all their objectives, but the rule book, I think, will be quite instrumental. And as I said, that's come out virtually on everything. And I suppose maybe just to share with you, obviously in the focus group recently, the Payments Forum, we did CBDCs, and I'd welcome your sort of view really on why you feel that's so important at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Kevin. And actually, I think, CBDCs are an area of focus and experimentation around the world. So whether that's kind of various sandboxes, whether that's regulators themselves looking at the policy side as well as technology aspects, that they have the ability and, to really transform kind of payments, and certainly as a store of value, as a means of being able to facilitate global finance and trade. There's a lot of interest in use cases that are developing. And so I think for me, it's the combination of interest, of experimentation, of innovation, and actually the excitement about how it could be used, and how that would and could coexist with traditional fiat kind of payments as well. So for me, it's hugely exciting. It's great that I get to see from my seat as a mentor to the project the ideas, creativity, the thinking that goes on in the group that you lead, and it's super exciting kind of work.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe looking ahead, then, we've just had a great summary from you about what's happening, the excitement about the coming weeks and months ahead, but maybe kind of future areas of focus for the project, maybe, your perspectives on where you could see that going in the months and, months ahead.
Well, I think one of the things we could build on, as I said, we've mentioned about the engagement with other associations, and I think we need to build on our involvement from the Global Payments Forum. The whole CBDC, as you've rightly sort of nicely summarised there, as well as cryptocurrencies generally, is becoming more and more paramount. And I think we need to sort of maybe explore that a bit more for the membership about where that's sort of possibly going in the future. The engagement with the other associations is also really important, because I think, as well as the rule book, which I've mentioned earlier on, I just think the whole aspect about harmonisation, about how regulation works across the globe, really, to sort of help some of the cross-border developments will be sort of paramount. So I think I'm really excited where the project could look at maybe rather than trying to look at all of the aspects of the FSB, maybe just focus on some of the specifics, particularly around harmonisation and particularly around the collaboration, how we can actually perhaps break barriers down into how we can get that greater benefit for all. Because, I mean, it's very important about the inclusive part of the cross-border payments as well. So I would say those were the areas I would probably see the group focusing on, and we'll try and bring that out from the rulebook and analysis.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And maybe the last question from me really is, we have a dynamic group. We have your excellent leadership of that group. If you were to kind of have a call to action for those, who are keen to join, and actually maybe you don't even need to do the call to action, because I myself from the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes, there's a huge amount of work going on, but really an opportunity to shape the industry. What would you say for those who may be thinking about joining the group, and what you'd say to some of those folks?
I think the main thing I would say probably is that, we are very much involved in what is a really at the pivot of the evolution of in terms of payments. But I also think we've now established ourselves as quite an influential group in terms of, we are building relationships in terms of engagement through lots of regulators, associations. And we will, I'm sure, get an opportunity to carry on doing more work on the Global Payments Forum. That has such a brilliant reach that I think we can really build on that. So I think the work we're doing with EPA Asia, the work we can also do with EPA in Europe, just gives us a great opportunity. And I think people who are particularly involved in those industries or are looking to sort of potentially expand their operation, in terms of their portfolio into cross-border, they would find it's a valuable group because it's a brilliant insight. The members are from all walks of the industry, there's quite lively debate, in terms of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to take it forward.
Wonderful. Well, no, that's a nice way to end it. And certainly if I can summarise it as well from what you said, huge amount of work to do, huge opportunity to make a change. And, you touched on it, the group has submitted a number of well thought through regulatory positional papers over the last year. A great group to kind of shape the future of cross-border payments through a voice that's listened to and have quite a lot of fun, dare I say it, while doing it. So, no, really well said, Kevin. Finally, from me, thank you. I've really enjoyed spending a few minutes with you to get your perspectives. I'm sure that the listeners and those watching will be energized. And, fingers crossed we have to, we'll be flooded in the days ahead with those willing to kind of join us and kind of help shape the future of cross-border payments.
And thank you. And thank you, Vikesh, for your continued mentorship on this. It's great to have such a powerful organisation who's involved in it and passionate about it, as we saw from your colleague that, moderated the last event. So brilliant. Thank you.